Volkanovski versus Makhachev. Just take about Alexander Volkanovski, and when I think about how impressive Alex was in this fight, I'm actually flabbergasted. Okay, so Islam won the fight. On the feet, it seemed like his strikes, did the more damage to Volk. But again, I can't take over the fact that Volkanovski was so impressive. This was such a close fight. And in a lot of iconic fights, they're visuals. They're visuals that stand the test of time. And for example, Israel Adesanya and Addison Silva, there's that visual there. Luke Rockhold, Paulo Costa. It's the visual of Luke Rockhold, just spreading his blood all over Paulo Costa. And for this fight, the endearing visual of this fight to me is Volkanovski, his back taken by Islam Makhachev, raining down back fists. And I don't know what he's yelling at him, but going on like this. And to me, you know, there are almost no moral victories in this sport, but heck, Volkanovski won the respect of the entire UFC. And that's such a strange statement to say because prior to this, Islam Makhachev had been steamrolling opponents, like absolutely steamrolling it, and he looked like a mortal. He looked like an absolute human being here. Look, I was definitely expecting Volkanovski to scramble. If taken down, I think his shorter frame lent itself to that. He is explosive, but it really seemed that and there were times obviously when Islam did take Volkanovski down, but in the last couple of rounds, Volkanovski almost took Islam Makhachev down. And the weaponized cardio that is definitely a strong point for Volkanovski came true. And just the fact that he ended this fight in Makhachev's guard, raining down punches, just these visuals, like at one hand, I kind of like you knew going to third, fourth that Islam had amassed a cup. Islam was not necessarily in the driver's seat, but he had won the majority of these rounds, and I think Eugene Behrman kind of sensed that as well, telling Volk that he was going to win, the last three rounds to win it. But it's just super impressive. It's super impressive, and it's such a weird thing to say given the accolades that Volkanovski has. Let's talk about the fight specifics. Islam won the majority of the battle on the feet. Volkanovski dropped him a couple of times, but I think Volkanovski will be the first to admit that he didn't really factor for Islam's striking being as effective as it was. And on the flip side, I'm sure Makhachev was absolutely surprised that he just could not take him down. And he did, but he could not take him down with the ease that he had taken down a lot of the lightweights. And, when we were going past the third round, and I was saying, look, he's gone past Charles. It was a super impressive fight. It was hyper competitive. And to think that a 145er in Alexander Volkanovski took Islam to his red limit. Yeah, I'm keen to see this fight again. I don't know. I don't think it needs to be straight away. Definitely. Actually, let Islam go back to fight some 155ers. But this was really competitive. The narrative, that Volkanovski was peddling in terms of to challenge himself and he was the guy, was absolutely there. He came in prepared. The camp was great. Everything was good. Apart from the fact that he couldn't necessarily capitalize with the significant advantage that he had in the feet. And, this is where the size does matter. Size does matter. And in the times that Islam was able to get Volkanovski to the ground, I believe it was the third round, snap up that body triangle. I mean, again, it's just a weird thing to say. I was just super impressed. Again, that visual of Volkanovski crawling to the edge of the cage, almost show ponying. Look, I have to say, the pressure that Volkanovski and all the Australians would have had fighting in Perth would have been immense. But you could hear the energy, through the commentary from the crowd. And there was no doubt that distraction may be a strong word. I mean, motivation is definitely a key element there. But he wanted to perform and he wanted to put on a show for the Australian audience. And he did. He absolutely did. in this case, he wasn't able to um, to solve totally the cube that was Islam Makhachev. But it's a weird one. It's a weird one for me because in this fight, I don't think at all that Volkanovski's stock dropped. If anything, his stock has risen. And that you can't say that in a lot of fights for the fighter that loses. As for Islam Makhachev, impressive. Really impressive. When you think about the stakes, I mean, he had his title on the line. He wasn't Volkanovski wasn't it wasn't the other way around. He was coming all the way to Australia. So, arguably he had the most to lose. It didn't look like it was the smoothest weight cut. So, fair play to Islam Makhachev and fair play to the fact that on the feet, which is Volkanovski's presumed advantage, Islam had success. He had a lot of success and he even cut Alexander Volkanovski. Volkanovski will be the same to say. But, again, weird circumstances in this fight. One, if you're a Volk fan, if you're an Australian, if you're just a fan of MMA, what does this mean about the narrative of Islam's ground game being as strong as it is? Is Volk just amazing? And he is. He's an absolute unique fighter, Alexander Volkanovski, and he is the best export that Australia has ever had. And he'll go down to be one of the best, if not the best 145ers out there as well. So Alexander Volkanovski, take a bow, rest up, because the fight against Yair Rodriguez is an exciting one and a very dangerous one. Yair is a worthy opponent. Islam Makhachev, take a bow. I mean, it was a great card. This was a great fight. And again, I think the crowd would have absolutely erupted if Alexander Volkanovski would have taken Islam Makhachev down. And I just, again, the visuals of this fight, to see Volkanovski being caught in the body triangle, but just talking smack and hitting Islam. To see Islam actually looking at the clock because he was so exhausted and the pressure, the cardio that Volkanovski was able to put. To see Volkanovski end the fight in guard, raining down punches from hell. Aussie, because this was great. This was a great beginning of the year for the UFC in terms of the main cards, and we just can't wait. Can't wait for what's next.